Good morning, everyone. How are you? My desk is quite messy. Give me just a second to set up. Life's a little hectic. I've been busy editing a book up until just 1 second ago. But here we are. We're ready to go. And now we have lots to talk about. Today is Wednesday. Wednesday is I don't know if it's like the worst day of the week or the best day of the week. For me, I feel like on Monday, I'm really excited to get to work. What's going on with this shirt? On Monday, I'm really excited to get to work. On Friday, I'm like, all right, weekend time. On Wednesday, it's like I don't really know if I'm super excited to be working or if I am super annoyed how the work has been going. Someone wants me to talk about Tilt. We're not going to do that today. But I have it written down. We will discuss that maybe on, actually, not Friday, because Friday I'm not going to be here. I'm going to New Jersey to play Magic the Gathering for the day. Woo! How excited am I? They have a tournament there. The only day I get to go is Friday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If I could go all 3 days, I'd play the main event. I'm just going there to play a side event and to have lots of fun. For those who know Magic the Gathering, I've been playing Grixis Delver in Legacy, and it's been going great. We're like, 17 wins, 3 losses, so it's going well. I have a few friends who play, so I'm going to go hang out with them, and it'll be a lot of fun. How much does first win in Magic the Gathering? I don't know. I think it's like a $40 buy-in. You don't really win first in the side events. If you just win 3 matches out of all of them, three out of 3, I think you get like $150, something like that. So, you get a little bit back. Stop at Sal's and get some pizza. Maybe. Really, I'm going to spend all my time at the convention center being a nerd. And that's okay. So yeah, no little coffee on Friday. As far as I know, I'm going to try to get there when they open at 10 a.m., which kind of means I have to leave at 9, so that doesn't really work so well. As a dad, no more 3-day junkets. That is right. My wife says, I can't believe you're planning all these trips. I'm like, what do you mean? I could have gone all 3 days. I'm just going for 1 day. And this is like right across, it's like an hour car ride away. What's the best pizza in New York City? In my opinion, Giuliana's. We've discussed this, I believe, before on A Little Coffee. Giuliana's is amazing. Okay. So no Little Coffee on Friday, but I will be back on Monday. So on Monday, maybe we'll be talking about Tilt. You have a whole week to get all of your good tilting in until I cure it for you on Monday. Today, though, we're going to talk about how to play the late stages of a tournament with a big stack. This person who sent in this question specifically asked in a bounty tournament. In general, bounties are irrelevant once you get to the late stages of a tournament. All you have to do is figure out what the bounties are worth in terms of chips. And quite often, say you're playing a $100 tournament with a $20 bounty, the bounty is only worth like 1/6 of a starting stack. So what is 1/6 of a starting stack worth? I mean, if you start with 10,000 chips, it's worth, I don't even know, 1,800 chips or something. So what is 1,800 chips worth? Not a lot whenever you're at the final table, right? So the bounties become pretty irrelevant. So don't worry about those. The only time you should be worrying about the bounties mainly is when you're in the early or maybe middle stages of a tournament, or if the bounties are especially large, right? Like say it's a $100 plus a $100 bounty, then the bounty's worth, well, half of your stack, or double your stack. So if you start with 10,000, the bounty's worth 10,000. But even then, if you're playing like a 500-person tournament, even a starting stack doesn't matter towards the end. So the bounties are pretty irrelevant. The only time they matter is when it's a progressive knockout tournament. That's the only time they matter at the end, and there you know how much they're worth because the poker sites will tell you. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to play a charity tournament tonight in New York City, put on by Will the Thrill. He's always a lot of fun. I went to this event last year. It's at New York Athletic Club. So you can find information for that on my Twitter feed or on my Instagram feed. It's tonight at 6 p.m., I believe. It should be a lot of fun. I went last year or the year before, and it was great. I think I went last year, and it was great. So come stop by, say hello. It would be fantastic if someone told me you came because you found me on A Little Coffee. All right, back to playing a big stack with late in the tournament. So I think a lot of people get in their minds that as a big stack, it's your job, it's your obligation to try to bust people. And that could not be farther from the truth. In reality, quite often, if you're the big stack, you have a gigantic advantage, right? You get to lean on all the middle stacks who want to survive before the short stacks go broke. I'm assuming we are, pretty deep in the tournament, like 20 people left or fewer, or if you're on the bubble. So in that scenario, you actually don't want to bust anyone. You may say, why don't I want to bust anyone? Aren't I happy to bust someone? Well, the only people you actually want to bust are the middle stacks. The short stacks, you want to keep them around. And that's because all the middle stacks have to be very, very tight when there are people who are very shallow. This is especially true if there are extremely shallow stacks. As an example of this, one time I was in a $10,000 buy-in tournament on the bubble at the World Series of Poker, 10,000 six-handed. And I purposefully took a few risks near the bubble to try to make sure I had the big stack at my table on the actual bubble. And it worked out. And from there, I crushed the opponents. There was one guy on my right, on my direct right, who had about 6 big blinds. Okay? And what would happen is everyone would fold to him, he'd shove from the small blind, and I would just fold any 2 cards. Because you don't want to bust that player there. Someone actually said to me whenever I wrote about this initially, like, is that collusion? And no, it's not collusion. I'm just playing the optimal strategy. In that scenario, I don't want the bubble to bust because I know I'm getting in the money, right? I have the gigantic stack. So all I want to do is keep the bubble going forever so that I get to steal from all these other players, the other 4 players at the table. And the guy on my right, he's going to get his free cash because I'm gonna fold every time he jams. Now, in that scenario, the middle stacks need to step up and be very willing to call that short stack. They are the ones who are obligated to bust the shallow stack because they really want to get out of that scenario. And they get out of that scenario by taking some risks. Can I recommend a book for total beginners? I don't actually know any books for total beginners who do not know the rules of poker. Get Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em and try that. Or Strategies for Beating Small Stakes Poker Tournaments or Cash Games, either one. You can find those at jonathanlittlepoker.com/books. They are not for like the most absolute beginners who don't know hand rankings, but if you do a little bit of reading on the internet, you can pick it up. Really, to get like the basics of poker, you can just read an article on the internet and you'll be fine. So, big stacks. As you see, I have a million pages of notes here. A million pages. I have 1 note card of pages. I have 1 note card of notes. The big stacks are not concerned with laddering up or busting players or anything like that. Now he says start at pokernews.com. They have lots of beginner advice. Good. So since you know you're not concerned with laddering up, who does want to ladder up? Well, the middle stacks, right? And the short stacks. Those players need to play tightly because quite often if you're really shallow, the most equity you have is by just sitting there and blinding out until 2 or 3 more people bust. Like on the bubble, for example, if you have 4 big blinds, then you're not going to win the tournament. So you need to instead play very tightly and get your free in the money. And that's exactly what you should do. And that's what the guy did on my right in the 6-handed 10K. He only jammed into me when he was in the small blind. And I folded every time. And that's just good strategy. I learned this strategy a long time ago from a guy, Daryl Dickin, in Sit and Goes. We used to play the high buy-in Sit and Goes up to $2,000 all the time on Party Poker. And he would always talk strategy for me. I'm not too sure why. But he would. He was very nice to me. And I learned that from him. And he crushed me many times by keeping the shallow stack alive in a Sit and Go. And it's often even more pronounced in a multi-table tournament because you only have to outlast 1 more person out of, and that's in the 10K, it was like 50 people. Whereas in Sit and Go, you have to outlast 1 out of 3, or 1 out of 4, which is way more difficult. So, yeah. You don't really need to be concerned with laddering up. So you don't need to be the sheriff and call everyone's all in thinking I need to bust people. That is not correct. Also, you need to be very aware of what the stack distribution is. If the shallow stacks are on your right, funny whenever I do it on the right on Instagram, it does the opposite. If they're on your right, then that's very good for you because you essentially get to fold to their shoves. If they're on your left, well, they now have to shove into the other medium stacks or the other shallow stacks, and those players do have a big incentive to call them because they want to get off the bubble scenarios. Or at a final table, they want to ladder up, and they do that by having to make the calls. So that's not such an advantageous spot for you. In the ideal world, if you can set up the stacks such that you have medium stacks on your left, shallow stacks on your right, and you're the big stack, you're just going to win all the money. I discussed this actually in Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. My chapter in that was on final table strategies. Let's show the book. It is this one here. I wrote it with lots and lots of other world-class poker players and authors. And my chapter was on, well, I had 2 chapters. One of my chapters was on final table strategies. And I think it was good. All right. Let's see. Keep the shortest stack alive. Yes, yes, yes. Realize, though, at some point, some people will get desperate, right? Say the bubble starts, or say you're at a final table. Everybody has 20 big blinds and you have 50. They all blind down, trying to wait for someone else to bust, and they all get down to 10 big blinds, which will happen a lot. Where did those other 10 big blinds from each of the players go? It went to you. So you went from 10 big blinds, or you went from 50 big blinds up to like 80 or 90, and they all have 10 now. They're going to get desperate. Someone's going to get desperate. They're going to realize, okay, this sucks. The only way I have a chance to win this tournament is to get all my money in quickly. And they do that by getting their money in, right? They still should not get their money in. Actually, it's interesting. As they get shallower and shallower, they very often need even more equity to get it in if there are other shallow stacks, because now they're like way more likely to outlast the other shallow stacks. So anyway, you really don't want to be gambling there as a shallow stack, but some people will. And when that happens, you need to be aware of that. Also, you'll find spots where, let's say someone's really tight, and they've been really tight on the bubble or at the final table, and then all of a sudden they raise. In that scenario, you need to do a lot of folding. Don't think you need to be 3-betting them or calling and then check-raising them on every flop, because they probably have something. If they probably have something, then you don't get to mess around with them. Remember, you win because they're going to fold too often, but if they announce that they have a good hand, they're probably not going to fold too often. This is called the Hand of God strategy. I don't know what a Hand of God strategy is. I think it's silly to name strategies after silly things, but some people do. There's this idea, though. So I mentioned, so if we talk about naming things funny names, whenever I used to play sit and goes, I would call a specific play a stupid raise. That's the term I came up with. How smart am I? It's a stupid raise. A stupid raise is a raise made by a medium stack into the big stack on the bubble. Okay? This is a stupid raise because very obviously the big stack should just jam it all in, or re-raise, or call and then fight aggressively. So a very frequent note I had on players is that their stupid raises are foldable. Meaning they're going to raise with a medium stack and then fold it on the bubble to the big stack shove. They're essentially playing directly into exactly what the big stack should be doing, which is stupid, right? So if you can find people who make stupid raises, you can just demolish them, right? If they're just opening a regular range, like say it folds to them in one of these scenarios where everybody has 20 big blinds, they have 9-8 suited and they open it, and you jam and they fold, that was a really, really big mistake to open into you, because you in particular know how to play a big stack well and you're going to be aggressive. So very often I want to find out quickly if those raises are foldable to aggression. If they are, you're going to really crush that player. And if they're not, well, you learn a lesson. But you ideally have paid attention and you've seen who has been generally aggressive in scenarios like this. And if you know who's been generally aggressive, you would know who's going to be more prone to open too wide. And if someone's opening too wide, then they just must be susceptible to re-raises, to aggression, right? All right, let's see. Middle stack should be cautious, yeah. So just as like a tangent to this, if you are a middle stack in these scenarios, you do need to be cautious. But at the same time, especially if there's any chance you can become a big stack, you really need to look for spots to push it. Like say, for example, 4 people have 20 big blinds, chip leader has 50, or better yet, 40. In that scenario, if you can go from 20 and double up to 40, well, who'd you double up to? Either double up to another stack or the big stack. That makes you the big stack, right? And then you are the one who gets to take over the aggression. Actually, in that $10,000 six-handed tournament, there was a hand I remember vividly. Someone raised, tight player, someone called. I called on the button with ace-10 suited. This is a spot where I thought the initial raiser was quite strong, so I'm not going to re-raise with the big stack. Actually, I wasn't the big stack. Me and Jake Schindler were the big stacks. Jake Schindler is a very good, aggressive player. Someone else calls small blind. Jake Schindler re-raises big from the big blind. So went like 2.5 call. He makes it like 18 out of a 70 big blind stack. Initial raiser folds, gets back to me. What do? Well, strategy's very obvious, right? We go all in. We go all in for our 70 big blind stack. In that scenario, if he calls and we lose, we're out on the bubble. However, if he folds, or if he calls and we win, now we have the big stack on the bubble at a table where we just crushed the other big stack to where now they are a very clear medium stack, forcing them to be tight. So, when we get called, we're probably going to win, 35% of the time. So 35% of the time, we just have all the chips. What percentage of the time do we get folds, though? That's the main question. In that scenario, I thought we'd probably get a fold half the time or more. So, let's say half the time we go up to 70 big blinds or 75 big blinds. I'm sorry, we go up to 100 big blinds because we started with 70. So half the time we go up to 100. And then 17.5% of the time we go up to 160. And then the other portion, let's say 32.5% of the time, we are out. I think in this actual scenario, I think I maybe had like 10 big blinds more, making my jam even easier, because if I get called and lose, I still have 10 big blinds and they can then hopefully sneak into the money. But even if it was for all the money, it's still probably right just to jam there. This is why you see a lot of the best players getting in the money with just infinite chips, or not getting in the money. And this is what you have to be willing to do if you want to get a big chip stack. I actually remember in this tournament, I got it all in with, I think I had aces against ace-5 suited late in the tournament for all the money, and I lost. So that was annoying. We got it all in pre-flop, I remember. It was against, who was it against? Guy always beats me. What's his name? I forget who it was. he had ace-5 suited, decided to like 4-bet it all in, and I had aces and I lost. But anyway, that is a scenario where you get a lot of chips, and if you do get a lot of chips on the bubble, you can then really crush the bubble, which I did. I remember Vanessa Selfs was also at another table with a big stack, and she did the exact same thing I did, where she was folding to the shorty and abusing everyone else. So anyway, taking risks leading up to those scenarios where you know there are going to be some sort of payout implications is very valuable. That's why at a final table, it's incredibly valuable to have a big stack, right? More than just what like ICM says your stack's worth. You get to lean on the other players because people should be folding too much. And also, if you lose, you still have equity, etc., etc. You're saying this move was based on the fact that Jake is overly aggressive. Well, I mean, he's good, right? I mean, he is aggressive, but even then, if this was just someone who I thought to be good, and I knew they were capable of making plays, I would still make the jam all in. And that math I gave, by the way, where I'm out, 32.5% of the time, I think that's even optimistic. I probably get called like 30% of the time. Because remember, he doesn't want to call for all his money on the bubble. That'd be insane. So, in that scenario, maybe I'm actually only out like 20% of the time, or 15% of the time, in which case we're just crushing him otherwise. Do you really think a strong player would fold when the button calls and then re-raises? What's the strongest hand you would flat with on the button? Greg, I think you're missing the point. The other big stack, Jake Schindler, cannot make that call unless he's just going to light both of our money on fire. And he's not trying to give away his money, right? He knows how to play well. And like in that scenario, if he has something like ace queen, he's probably supposed to fold, even though he does have my range in good shape. He has my range in bad shape. He's crushing me. If he has something like jacks, he's probably supposed to fold, because he gets to get in the money for free if he just sits there. Whereas if he calls, he's just out of the tournament. Because remember, he's out of the tournament 35% of the time if he calls, right? And he doesn't want to be out of the tournament 35% of the time. Also, remember, if you go back to the hand I mentioned, the initial raiser was tight, which means I did not re-raise the initial raiser. I'd probably not re-raise the initial raiser with much at all. Like if I had ace king there, I'd probably flat. So you can't say that I'm not going to have very many good hands. It's always important to understand the exact situation, and when the initial raiser is tight on the bubble, I did not think that was a stupid raise. So given I thought it was not a stupid raise, that means I should not be 3-betting much at all. Good morning from Wales. Hello, hello. California. If the big stack folds from early position and all the medium stacks are left, what are they now allowed to do? Play regular 20 big blind poker? No, because everyone needs to try to get in the money, right? Or try to ladder up. Have I read The Mental Game of Poker by Jared Tendler? I have. Jared Tendler actually helped write Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. Where is he? There he is. Jared Tendler's right here. He has a chapter in this book. I've done a few webinars with him. He He actually did 2 webinars in conjunction with Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. You can find those at hold'embook.com. Oh, I see a baby. Oh, mommy made him cry. Mommy made the baby cry. Baby's been sleeping. Can you say hello, world? Oh, look, he can stand up now. Can you stand up? Can you say hi? Yeah, you wave. You wave hello. Oh, I love him. You just want to stay with me? You just want to stay with me today? All right. Thank you for showing him to the world, Amy. He says, please take me out of here. It's so bright in here. Everyone says, hello, hello. Thank you, Amy, bye. What sites do I play on? Party Poker and PokerStars. I have no accounts on other sites. Let's see. He says he looks like James. Yes, he does look like James. Recommended book for your brother. He's going to the World Series of Poker to play some tournaments. Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'ems. Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em. So there are 2 options for you. Here are the 2 reasonable options we have. Strategies for beating small stakes poker tournaments. But look, this is an easy book, right? If he is actually going there to try to win, this will give him tips to not get demolished. But it's not going to teach him to be a very, very good player. This book will teach him to be a very, very good player. But there's a bit of a difference between these 2 books. I don't know if you all can tell. This one, Mastering, is a little bit bigger than this one, Strategies. So, depends on how much work he wants to do. Strategies is essentially a lot of consolidated tips to help you understand how to play against the bad players, which is who he will be playing against. So, if he wants to read a short 80-page book, that's a good one to go to. The percentage required to shove is... James, I have no clue what you're asking. Sorry. All right, what other notes do I have here? Whenever you're the big stack, don't be a hero thinking you need to ladder up, but also don't be a nit, right? A lot of people with a big stack think, okay, I now have half the chips. I'm just going to sit here and make sure I take at least 3rd place or 2nd place. And that is a very big mistake. Sitting there and folding, fold, trying to ladder up is not a good idea. Remember, you have a lot of equity, and if you just be aggressive, you will win the tournament a lot. Don't be tight, really hoping to move up. I know this happens to a lot of players whenever they're playing like way too big. Like say you satellite into the main event for $100, and then you're playing at the final table for millions of dollars, and every payout jumps as $1 million. Like, oh, I need another $1 million. But interestingly enough, you really don't. At some point, like once you have $1 million locked up, or 500K locked up, or whatever, the exponential jump to like 10 million is very, very huge, and you should be trying to get that. What's the difference between a $400 and a $1,600? I mean, I don't know. Not much. And like in terms of skill levels of players, probably not a lot. So anyway, don't be a nit when you have a big stack either. What's my best result in the Sunday Million? I chopped it one time. I think I took 3rd. I don't know. I chopped it. We chopped it 4 ways. I remember I was last in chips, and I got a better deal than the player in 3rd place when we chopped. So that was fun negotiating. I also chopped the one on full tilt. No, I don't think I chopped that one, actually. Sorry, I think I took 2nd. Yeah, I took 2nd in the one on full tilt. Lil Holden beat me. Trying to think what's the best I did on a party poker one. I don't know if I've done anything on a party poker one. But I don't know. The good old days. All right, when there's a short stack that is super short, and they're all in, is for way less creating a big side pot. Would you recommend trying to steal the side pot? Depending on the situation, what do you think is going to happen, right? If you think the opponent's in there with a lot of garbage, then sure, feel free to bluff, right? And if you think there are in there with lots of good hands, you don't need to be bluffing. But yes, if there's like a 5 big blind main pot and then a 40 big blind side pot, obviously it's like the main pot doesn't even matter. And if anything, it's a pretty good spot to bluff, because in that scenario, what happens is it looks like you must have a good hand, because why would you possibly bet with nothing given the shallow stack is going to win the side pot if you bluff out the other guy. But it's a good spot to bluff. I've had quite a few dirty looks thrown my way where I've won the side pot with like 8 high and then the short stack won. Would I do a short interview on your site? Send an email, support@pokercoaching.com with the details, and I will do it. Did they slash the Sunday Million to $100? I don't know. I mean, if they did, I don't like that. No, I like tournaments to be big. You almost got into a fight because you bet a guy out of a pot. Yeah, I mean that's what happens whenever you bet a guy out of a pot that they think they're supposed to win. Greg says, I chopped the Full Tilt tournament and got 25% of $0. Actually, funny enough, also on Full Tilt, not their Sunday tournament, but they had these $1,000 multi-entry tournaments. And not the last one, but the next to last one, I ended up taking second place in. And that tournament, Mike Sowers, one of my friends, he actually won it, and he took 9th place, or 10th place, or whatever spot they gave to him. Anyway, I cashed like $320K, which is nice online score. And at that time, I was playing a lot of 200, 400 PLO. And knowing myself, I decided to take the cautious approach and cash all of it out. Because I did not really want to play 200, 400 PLO all the time. I think I'd rather have 320K in the bank. So I cashed out like all but 30 or 40K of it. And then the money hit my bank account like 2 days before Black Friday. So that was lucky. Love makes the classic error of saying, they chopped the buy-in half, but they have the same prize pool. Realize, though, that that's not good for you necessarily, because if they have twice the number of players, but the same prize pool, it's the same thing. Maybe the tournament's slightly softer, but if you're a good player, you want to be investing as much money as you can with roughly the same ROI, and you will have roughly the same ROI. Maybe it'll be slightly bigger in the $100 game, but would you rather have, let's say, 50% ROI in the $100 tournament or 40% ROI in the $200 tournament, right? In that scenario, you'd obviously rather have 40% ROI in a $200 tournament. Casino says you can't agree to check it down because that's collusion. That is accurate. You can't agree to it, but you can do it. Let's see. Louis Philippe says, on Monday, you incinerated a very healthy stack in the Canada Grand Prix. You went bet, jam into aces. Yeah, well, that happens. It's re-entry now, so it'll be tougher. Oh, yeah, so if the Sunday Millions are re-entry now, that definitely makes it way more difficult. I like what Party Poker's doing, going to a lot of freeze-out tournaments. That is good for poker. Now, if it was $1 million guarantee for $100 with no re-entries, I could probably get behind that. That said, usually whenever they make a tournament no re-entries, they make the buy-in bigger, not smaller, right? So yeah, people are saying the Millions will be more impossible to win than ever now. Yeah, whenever they go to re-entries on any event, ROIs go down across the board. And that's a big problem. I mean, really, this is why I don't do a whole lot of traveling to like $3,500 tournaments anymore, because if it was a freeze-out, you'd have like 100% ROI, but now it's unlimited re-entry, you have like 20% ROI. And of course, you may get to buy in 5 times, so you get the same ROI, but there's way more variance, right? Nathan says, you're a feel and instinct player. It takes a while for the math to sink into your brain. You have to understand what the math dictates. What plays do the math dictate? Like, for example, with flush draws, right? You know in No Limit Hold'em, if someone bets and you have a flush draw, unless the bet is humongous, you don't need to fold, right? That's not rocket science. You know, if you have a gut shot and your opponent bets small, you probably need to call. Just spill water all down my shirt. That's what happens when you drink water while you're talking. So like stuff like that kind of math is more of just realizing patterns and understanding what the math dictates. Very often, you're not doing complicated math at the poker table. I mean, you're doing pot odds, but even then the pot odds are often somewhat obvious, right? And you can memorize pot odds. Say the pot's $100 and your opponent bets $100, you're getting 2 to 1, right? If your opponent bets $50, figure out what that means. If your opponent bets $30, figure out what that means and figure out how often you need to win. And then if you study a lot away from the table, you'll know roughly how often your hand will win against your opponent's range. How did I say allowing only one re-entry affects ROI? Well, it definitely hurts it, but not the end of the world. Hello from Israel. Poker is illegal here. Well, that's unfortunate. Isn't the rule of 2 and 4 sufficient? It's fine. It's not accurate, but it's fine. Again, you have to ask, am I trying to be very good or am I trying to be marginal? And having rules that give you rough estimates on very common spots will make you marginal, especially if you never actually continue working and understanding the game, right? Kind of like I just said, to the person going to the World Series of Poker, if you read this, how many pages is this? This is a tiny book. If you read this 80-page book, you're going to be okay. If you want to be good, well, you got to read the 500-page book. You have to do lots and lots and lots of work. If you want to do the rule of 2 and 4, yeah, you'll be fine. Your math's going to be wrong, but you'll be fine. Let's see. Vincent says, million has been 215 with single reentry. Now it's going to be 100 with a single reentry. I mean, the only reason they would do this is because they think they're going to get more players. Interestingly enough, if you look at 215 compared to 109, they rake more in the 109. So if they have twice as many players, which maybe they will, maybe they won't, then they rake more money. One thing that poker site is good at doing is raking more money. All right. The guarantee is the same. You don't see how it matters, except they'll get more recreational players. The guarantee is essentially irrelevant. It's important to realize that the guarantees don't matter much if there's no overlay. And if you pay attention to poker sites, they don't do a whole lot of overlay. I mean, you saw what Party Poker did recently. They have a 20 million guarantee. 20 million! And they got it. No problem, right? The sites don't do a whole lot of overlays. And that's because people show up. Now, of course, you may say the people getting added in are recreational players, which is true. But that's not going to significantly increase your ROI. And also, the recreational players play once. The good players play 2 times every time. Do you ever do neutral EV flips in cash games? There are definitely spots to do them, especially if the loser will get tilted, and you will not. What if you're a non-pro? Is it okay to then use inferior strategies? Listen, you have to ask your goals, right? If you're trying to win the most money you can, then you should try to win the most money you can. Vincent says they make 9% rake now instead of 6%. What's that worth? Someone do $1 million times 9%. They do $1 million times 6%. What's the difference? They're going to make that much more every time they run that tournament. Well, was it 20 million online? Yes, 20 million was online. It was a $5,000 buy-in. They also did a 10 million guaranteed, 2 of them, in the Bahamas in November. And I thought there was like no way they were going to get it for the 25K after day 1A. There were like no players. And they got it. You say you missed the 5K Party Poker tournament. Funny enough, a guy he studies a lot of my stuff. His name was Scarmaker on there. He bought in for $5 in a satellite and ended up taking 3rd place for $1.3 million. That's a good run. Now we're working on getting him ready for the World Series of Poker. The main event needs to throw out some ridiculous guarantee to attract the bad players. Even if they just put on like the regular guarantee. Say they put on 100 million guarantee. I don't know what the normal guarantee gets, but I mean, that's 1,000 players, right? They can get 1,000 players. They've done that plenty of times. They would get 1,000 players if they put 100 million guarantee. No, 10,000 players. 10,000 players, sorry. How should you change your game from switching between tournaments and cash games? Understand that they are different games. Cash games and tournaments are different. You cannot think different types of guarantees... I'm sorry, different types of games are the same. Like 6-handed and 9-handed are different, right? Under the gun 6-handed is obviously different than under the gun 9-handed. Sit and goes are obviously different than multi-table tournaments. So you need to figure out the differences between the games. You've been incorporating my strategies with lots of good results. Good job. You keep getting a lot of calls from second pair. Good job. Are guarantees pointless? No, guarantees are not pointless. Guarantees are great because people who don't understand that the guarantees are irrelevant care a lot about guarantees. A lot of people as well... I mean, I hear even like decent pros saying things like, oh, this is a 5 million guarantee. I got to go play that. But in reality, whatever you play, you get your ROI. And that's it. Whatever your ROI is, you cash it out. You'll have a higher ROI because there are more players, but you can't think, I could go there and win $1 million, so that's why I want to go play it. Because it doesn't matter. It just does not. I mean, I'm promised to all of you. I know it sounds crazy, but the amount you win on any individual trial does not matter. What matters is what is your ROI across the board, and are you putting in enough volume to ensure you cash out that equity? If you play enough, you will cash out your ROI. You're going to have those $1 million wins. You're going to have those big losses. That is part of the game. But overall, you have an ROI, and that's it. And of course, you'd rather play a tournament where you have a higher value. But let's say there's some tournament across the world that has a $5 million guarantee, but there's one at home that has $1 million guarantee. The one at home that you don't have to travel to and have a lot of expenses for probably is going to give you a way better return on investment than the one that you would have to go across the world to play that had a much bigger guarantee. But I see people making that error all the time where they go across the world to play a tournament when there's one right at home that has, it's like equally good in terms of ROI. Now, of course, they may get a vacation, they may get travel time, they may enjoy that kind of thing. That may make sense. But very often it's not worth traveling. I mean, this happens to local players all the time. Like, happens to my dad, for example. There's a tournament in Pensacola, Florida, where he lives. He may skip that to go to Biloxi, a few hours away, to play a similar buy-in tournament that should have a slightly bigger field, maybe more prestige. Maybe they give you a nicer trophy, right? And that makes sense if you care about those things. But if you care about only making money, realize even the best players from Pensacola are going to be leaving to go to Biloxi, making the Pensacola tournament soft. So would you rather play a softer tournament you don't have to travel to, or would you rather have to travel to it? Now, of course, you may enjoy going to Biloxi and going to a nicer casino and having nicer food, et cetera, maybe enjoys that experience. But if you're playing to make the most money possible, that's what you need to keep in mind. Is it true the Aussie Million is soft? Yes. Starting the grind in 10 minutes on Stars. Good luck. Enjoy yourself. Quick cold shower and a cup of tea. Yeah, cold showers are good. How do you get better at the math of your range as opposed to your opponent's range? You need close to 30% EV from your teachings. No, you need EV based on the pot odds you're getting. If your opponent bets $1 million into $1, you need lots and lots of equity. If your opponent bets $10 into $1 million, you need almost no equity. The odds you're getting are very relevant. How do you get good at this? You study. You study a lot, even using simple programs like Equilab. Put in your hand against a range and figure it out. All right. Saying you never got into playing online. I definitely suggest everyone play online, especially if your goal is to get good. And I would suggest you not play free rolls. I would suggest you play real money poker. And that's because that one you'll be playing against other people who are taking it very seriously as opposed to people who are just like goofing off and playing for fun. Don't play money games. I definitely do not suggest that. And I'm telling someone this who I know is trying to get good at poker. If you're trying to get good at poker and increase your skills, play against other people who care. People don't care about play money games. At least most of them don't. Is the only time the guarantee actually matters when there's a high likelihood of an overlay? Yes. I went to the party poker tournament in November thinking there probably would be an overlay. I mean, I would have gone anyway because I know they satellited in a bunch of players and it would be soft and there were a lot of high buy-ins. But, yes, overlay is nice. Would you grind online if poker was legal in America? Poker's not illegal in America. I don't know why people think this. Transferring money into and out of a poker site from your bank account is illegal. Please understand the laws. Let's see. Is 10, 20 big blinds over 100 good? Yes. What's the best ROI you've ever had? I don't know what you mean by that. In live poker, across the board, across my career, we have about 80% ROI. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, I don't know. That's counting soft tournaments, that's counting tough tournaments. It's roughly what we're looking at. You can do the math. All right. Vincent says they're going to be ranking 70 or 80K more per Sunday nights. What are my thoughts on getting into a pot with another large stack late in a tournament? Do you avoid that? No, that's like a spot where you want to be, especially if you're going to navigate those spots well, because that's how you get a hold of very, very big stacks, right? You just want to make sure you are winning way more of the pots than you are losing. I think Joe may be asking, what's the best score you've ever had in a tournament? But understand that is averaged into all of the ROI long term, right? Any individual result does not matter that much. Even if it's $1 million score, right? I was very lucky in my career to have almost no good scores the first year I played. I lost like every tournament. Does that mean that I am a negative 60% ROI player? Maybe I was playing poorly. I don't know. Shortly after that, though, we won everything. Does that mean now all of a sudden I'm a 500% ROI player? Obviously not, because no one is. So anyway, be aware of what the question is, right? If you're asking like what the best score is, that's a very different question. We won $1 million twice. How lucky is that? And 750 once, and 320 twice. Those are, I guess, are the big scores. But the idea of what's the least amount of money you turned into a lot of money one time, that doesn't really matter. It just doesn't matter. Because, I mean, I know at the beginning I started with $50. So I started with $50, and well, now we have millions. So what is the trial? Like, why does the result of a day or a tournament matter? And I promise you it doesn't. And interestingly enough, if you look at, let's say, all of my results over all of my career, you can actually look at that as one sample and compare that to other very good players. And that's really what is relevant over the long term. The long term is all that matters. The idea of I care about what I did last individual tournament does not compute. You need to get that out of your brain. I mean, you hear them talk about it on TV, like, oh, we turned $1,000 into $1 million this week. How great. It's just irrelevant. I mean, it's like Scarmaker, who turned $5 into $1.3 million. Yeah, that's great, but think about all the other satellite qualifiers who lost. All the other tens and tens of thousands who just lost. It all averages out. That said, if you have an edge, you'll have an edge. You feel your game can be affected by not playing as much as I used to. No, I study a ton and watch tons and tons of hands. Tons and tons and tons of hands. And that phrase where you're confused whether you need to transition from tournaments to cash, numbers in both are decent, but being a part-time cash game player is better, is easier. Yes, it definitely is easier. So if you're winning the same amount from tournaments and cash games, obviously play cash games. Cash games are almost always right for most people to play whenever they are not very high-stakes players. The reason tournaments are great is because you can play very high stakes against very recreational players. Or even if you play a $1,000 tournament, if 90% of the field goes broke, it's essentially like you're playing a $10,000 buy-in tournament now, right? So if you're playing a $10,000 buy-in tournament against players who are very comfortable buying in for $1,000, you're going to have a huge edge. And this is why tournaments, especially at the high stakes, are very, very, very profitable. You're just not going to find like soft 200, 400 cash games on a regular basis, but you will find soft $10,000 buy-in tournaments all the time. When playing online, use a heads-up display. Yes, I have a, I'm going to say horrible leak where I have a crutch where if I don't have my heads-up display working, I don't play because I realize how incredibly valuable that thing is. I'm very good at leaning on the heads-up display. Not as good as some people. Some people have like 1 million stats on the screen. I only have 15 or 20. Are tournaments like a plus EV lottery? All games are like a plus EV lottery if you are a good player. All right. I'm trying to think about what my biggest turn no money into a lot of money has been. It has to be this tournament on Poker Stars. It was a $10 tournament. I think it's called the... I don't remember what it was. It was a $10 tournament. They called it something silly like the Sunday Storm or something like that. And I would always play this $10. This one, there was a turbo one and a slow one. I always played the turbo one and the slow one each week on top of all the other 100 tournaments I played. And one time I think I took second in, or maybe I won it. I don't remember. Anyway, it was like winning I remember it was like the size of the World Series of Poker main event. So I was thinking, man, why'd I have to run hot in this $10 game instead of the $10,000 game? So that must have been the best ROI for any individual event. But again, that was only winning like, I think it was only like 10K. I think it was like 10K or so. So I probably lost on the day. Should you hedge your Super Bowl pick? Anytime you hedge, you are making another negative EV bet, presuming you have no edge in betting. So if you have no edge in the bet, you are essentially giving away some money to decrease variance. So is that fine with you? Which software do I recommend for playing online? I mean, I just use Hold'em Manager. I've always used Hold'em Manager. There may be better ones, there may be worse ones. What's plus EV? Explain. Plus EV means, like say we're flipping a coin. Every time I win, you have to give me $2. Every time you win, I have to give you $1. The coin's fair. We're both going to win 50-50. I'm going to have some amount of equity in this flip. I'm going to get paid 2 units. You only get paid 1 unit, right? In that scenario, every time we flip the coin, you are essentially paying me money in the long term. Let's see. How do you play on real money from the US? You don't. You go out of the country. Don't do anything unethical. Don't be trying to be shady. It's very clear what happens when people try to do that. They get in a lot of trouble. So, don't do that. Patrick says, before Black Friday, you won a 4,700 person free roll and got $20. 20x ROI. Actually, Patrick, if you win a free roll, you have infinite ROI, right? You started with 0, now you have infinite. ROI is based on your buy-in. If your buy-in is 0, you have infinite ROI. What's the difference between cash and tournaments? Well, tournaments are very often played with all sorts of various stack sizes, right? And that's important. Also, in tournaments, you don't get to re-enter if you go broke, normally. Or if you do, like especially late in the tournament, you may lose your potential EV, your potential equity if you lose. So you should try to not lose as often. You hedge your Super Bowl pick because the Patriots, before the season to win the AFC, it says, okay. Anyway, yeah. If you make a bet, I never really understand why you want to hedge it. That never really made sense to me. Like, if I thought a bet was good, why do I all of a sudden think it's bad? Now, you may think it's bad now. Like, maybe you hate your line, hate your side. In which case, then it makes sense to hedge. But that is you making the decision, the play, that I think my bet is no longer good. If you think your bet is good, if you think your side is good, and you think the current odds are good, which they're not for the Super Bowl, they're always roughly correct. If you think the odds are good, then you should pile on your side again, right? You should be adding more money to your side, assuming you're properly bankrolled. What's the expectation of your time worth? 20 plus for 10 hours of your time. $20. Yes, my time is worth quite a lot. So no, not $20 an hour. Sorry. Fortunately, poker is a really good game to get into because if you do get good at it, your hourly rate will be just like through the roof compared to almost any other activity you could do. Like I know that like I like to I said like 100 times then. I like to play Magic the Gathering, but a good win rate for Magic the Gathering is like $10 an hour. So why do you want to invest your time learning something that can only potentially make $10 an hour? You don't, right? That's dumb. Unless you love it. Now, I love Magic the Gathering, so I spend a few hours a week on it, and it's fun. And if you can make a little bit of money or not lose money doing something you think is fun, there's nothing wrong with that. That said, if it's going to be your career, make sure your career actually has the potential to do very well. That's not to say you want to make a career out of something that you... If you love something and you can sustain yourself from it, it's probably fine. You probably do not want to be doing something you hate to make a lot of money. I mean, you see this in lots of high-paying professions. People get into it purely because they want to get rich, but very quickly they realize getting rich does not give fulfillment. So make sure whatever you do fulfills you. If you're not fulfilled, if you're not happy, if you're not enjoying your experience here on Earth, you should probably be doing something else. So that's going to be it for today. I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment soon. And if you're in New York City, if you're not even in New York City, you can fly here and be here by the time the Will the Thrill charity tournament takes place. Tonight at 6 p.m., New York Athletic Club. Come say hello. Whenever I first heard of the New York Athletic Club, I thought it was a gym. Turns out it's a swanky club that's been around for forever. I'm not going to say it's necessarily a poor name, but that's an interesting name. What's the most important aspect of poker you should learn for a 1-3 player trying to move up? Oh, this is easy. There's a chapter in this book, Excelling at No Limit Hold'em by Ed Miller. This guy right here. Ed Miller's chapter is on moving up in stakes and staying there. He explains exactly what you need to do to move up in stakes and stay there. And this applies from tiny stakes all the way up to high stakes. Moneypot says you hedge to try to guarantee a portion of your profits. Yeah, you're taking insurance. So that's it for today. Hope you all have a great day. Hope you enjoy yourselves. Anyone who is concerned with the rules and regulations regarding online poker in their various jurisdictions, read the rules, read the laws. Stop listening to headlines and tabloids. They are giving you incorrect information. Everyone seems to think poker is illegal in America. It's not. Stop thinking it is. I guess I just don't get this. Like, where are people getting this misinformation? Oh, don't get me on a tangent going on this. Monday, we're probably going to discuss Tilt. We're probably not going to be here on Friday. Like I said, probably not going on... we're probably not going to be here on Friday. But Monday, I will almost certainly be here. Things that get me tilted are the spreading of misinformation. I hate it when I see people being fed false information by people who are only out to make money off of you. Whenever you read false information, those people are making money off of your clicks. And they are providing you a huge, huge disservice. So make sure you understand what you're reading. Be very, very skeptical. An easy way to know if something is legal or illegal is to learn how to read laws. Learn how to read rules, learn how to read regulations. A good way to get good at poker. Learn how to do math. Learn how to assess situations, right? Don't just listen to what I say. You need to make sure what I'm saying is accurate. So understand that. When do we start these streams? These streams start Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. You can go back and watch all the replays at youtube.com/floattheturn. All right, that's going to be it for today. Have fun. Enjoy yourselves. Be nice to someone. Learn to be skeptical in a way that is not like conspiracy theorists, but in a way that is like a scientist. Test the hypotheses, see if they are correct. If they're not correct, understand that source may not be the best. Or maybe that source just got that one thing wrong. But then go from there. All I want is for all of you to have clear vision and understand the truth. All right, be nice to someone. Have a great weekend. Run hot. Don't go on tilt. I may see you on Friday, but I'll probably see you on Monday. And if you miss any of these, go back and watch them. Like I said, all of the past episodes are on youtube.com/floattheturn, or you can just search Jonathan Little and I'll come right up. If you like this, click like, subscribe. If you don't like this, well, don't come back. Talk to you later.